Okay.
Oh,
all right.
Patrick is here too. So
Tragic was signed in before. All right, we have a quorum. We'll get started. So we will do attendance, starting with Dorothy in the corner there.
Dorothy Banaszewski, Facilities Construction.
Holly Hahn, Office of the General Counsel.
Michael Tubiolo, Facilities Construction.
David Dolan, Facilities Management.
David Porter, Cork.
Myers, Construction Purchasing.
John Cheshire, Cork.
Michael O'Neill, Proctor Construction.
Renee Ray, Randolph Construction Group.
John Levinson with Rel Enterprises representing Wharton Smith and Cisco.
Tom Jacob Bison with Wharton Smith.
Bob Bliss, Office of Inspector General.
Simran Wagre with the Whites Company.
Sean Maurer, Cork Construction.
Jacob Katz, Pirtle Construction.
James Farrell, Facilities Construction.
Okay, and do we need to do online or we just know who's there?
We've got Lou Doctor. Michael Gelfand.
Present.
Sam Shannon.
Here.
Chadrick McCoy.
Here.
And Virginia Ferris.
Present.
All right, Tragic wins best dressed.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm actually on a court hearing too, so I'm sorry, it wasn't for court.
So he dressed up
For the court hearing.
You didn't dress up like that just to be online for court? Come on, man. All right, thank you for joining anyway. All right, we got attendance, chairman's report. I have nothing to report. Anyone with a conflict of interest for anything we're reviewing today? Hearing none. Cork report. I assume no questions, Lou? And then the question is, can you do another one for us? You might need to unmute yourself.
I'd like to make a comment.
Yes. Go ahead, Virginia.
Okay. I want to thank Lou for doing these reports each month, but I wonder what we do when there's a discrepancy. I noticed in the report that it said there were no dissenting votes, but the minutes do reflect that two items did have a dissenting vote. Michael Gelfand did dissent on two items. So I wonder how we handle a discrepancy like that.
I don't know. I will say that I missed that too because Lou has me take a look at the report before it goes to the board. So I apologize as well. It does get a couple of eyes to take, to look at it before it goes to the board. So we will be more cognizant of that going forward.
Well, I'm glad that it is going by some eyes because I think Lou does a great job and we appreciate what he's doing, but it does help. Does the secretary get to look at it?
Secretary of what, Cork?
Yes.
Do we have a secretary of Cork?
Well, who's doing the minutes?
Dorothy does the minutes.
Well, then is Dorothy looking at it?
I usually do, but that's the meeting I missed, and so
Okay.
obviously it fell apart.
We did miss you, Dorothy.
Thank you, Virginia.
All right. Thank
David,
you.
I had a comment on that.
Go ahead, Lou.
Mike definitely said no, but when we actually took the vote, I heard a yes. That was the reason why the discrepancy existed.
Yeah, Virginia, that is the point. Michael did vote for that one, even though there was discussion and he had pulled it. I believe that's correct, Michael Gelfand, isn't it?
On one of them I voted no, the other one I voted yes. Correct.
Okay, so there was one dissenting that you voted no on. Okay.
So the minutes then are incorrect.
It's possible. Yes. So we'll be more mindful of that going forward.
We're in the middle of roll call. I believe we had Lou was the voice you were listening.
Did you have anybody else you needed to roll call?
No?
No, we got everybody. Okay. All right, we're up to staff updates.
Okay, I'll try to make it quick. The only thing I have to let everybody know about has nothing to do with the actual construction work that we're doing. I want to take an opportunity to applaud our Chief Operating Officer. Mr. Joe Sanchez just finished and came back from Barcelona, Spain,
Oh, he did the Ironman.
where he did an Ironman triathlon. He did 2.4 mile swim, 110 mile bike ride, and a 26 mile marathon, all in 14 hours and something 19 minutes.
Wow.
So just think about it. Imagine you woke up at 7 o'clock in the morning and started exercising, and you stopped at 9:30 at night. That's what his day was. Such an incredible feat. I mean, it blows me away just thinking about it. So the next time you get a chance to see him, please express appreciation for that incredible effort.
So is that why he's not here today?
No, but thank you, Virginia, for mentioning that. He is in fact back. He came back yesterday, but today, and ironically, it's every CORC meeting. The school district has a monthly meeting with all principals, and it used to be called Principal Leadership. It's now called the Leadership Summit. And every month, all the principals converge on a school, and they go through a lot of the updates, and so there's some trainings and whatnot. And Mr. Sanchez is in fact at that today and is doing a presentation in front of all of the principals today. So unfortunately, he may pop in, but he is most certainly on that effort today.
I make a motion, we take up a collection for psychiatric evaluation.
Mr. Chairman, I was wondering, can any of us imagine what we would look like if we did 16 hours of CORC?
Oh, my God.
All right, there's a presentation for next month. But that was it for as far as staff updates. Dorothy, did you have anything that you needed?
Did you want to do that restroom project?
Oh, yes. Oh, this is a good time to do that one.
Talk about toilets. Yay.
Yeah, well, this one's a special one. Our dear retired.
Oh, no.
Yes, our dear retired CORC leader, Jim Kennard. We just got recent word from Jim that Jim is doing really wonderful in his retirement. He and Patty are having the time of their lives. Now, Jim was so kind to share with us a home improvement project that he's been working on. And sadly, like us, he found that he could not get contractors to do the work for the price that he wanted. So Jim decided to do the work himself. He and Patty were the lowest bidder on the project. But he wanted to send along some of the photos of the work and also express appreciation, because do you know who designed and drew everything on all these bathroom renovations and home improvements? Yes, our own chair, Mr. Porter. Mr. Porter, and Jim wanted to express to everybody the pride in the fact that when these drawings went in for permit, there were 0 comments. They got the permits right away. And even on inspections, they only failed 1 inspection and got all the work done swiftly, and as you can all see from these wonderful photos, incredibly well.
Wow. I think the nearest cost Jim found from a GC was like 90.
There you go.
Oh, my gosh.
So
Wow.
that was my takeaway was when you do it yourself, you can do it cheaper than what came out.
I got lots of phone calls and emails. Well, should I put insulation here? How's the mason going to cut this opening? Well, here's how you do it. So it was fun.
So, yes, thank you, Dorothy. I totally forgot that I wanted to do it at this point. But yes, so well done, sir. Incredible work. And I know it means a lot to he and Patty.
Yeah.
And that's it for.
Okay. Public comments. Comments. All right. None. All right. Let's go down our consent agenda. FC1. FC2.
Yes.
PC1. PC2. PC3. PC4.
Yes.
PC5. PC6.
Yes.
I always feel like I'm calling bingo when I call these out.
Move the items forward on consent agenda that were not pulled.
Mr. Chair, I was trying to get my agenda pulled up here. Was PC2 pulled?
It was. You want to pull it also?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
EC2? EC2 is not pulled.
I'm sorry.
F,
Yes. Mike.
PC2.
Okay, Michael. All right, we had a first by Virginia to approve all that weren't pulled. Need a second?
Second.
Second by Sam. Go ahead, Dorothy, poll us, please.
Just want to make sure nobody else, Ken Lassiter joined us. Okay, David Porter,
Yes.
John Cheshire,
Yes.
Ken Lassiter. Ken?
Here.
Thank you. Lou Doctor? Virginia, can you see his thumb?
Yes, he said yes.
Okay, thank you. Michael Galfand,
Yes.
Michael Guida,
Yes.
Sam Shannon,
Yes.
Tradrick McCoy,
Yes.
and Virginia Ferris.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll start with FC2. John, you pulled that.
Dorothy, could you bring up page 9?
Yeah. I was expecting FC1, I'm sorry.
I had asked a lot of questions about this one. Basically, because the spreadsheet that was provided, the backup wasn't accurately matching it, or a lot of it was missing, and staff provided me that information, so I appreciate it. So I'm not going to have any questions on that. It's just on this form, which is called request for increase due to cost escalation. My first question is, like, who fills that out? Is that the contractor or school district?
Contractor does.
I think you ought to put a space on there where they sign it and date it. That would be helpful.
Okay.
But if you could scroll down just a little bit, too much, up, right there. No, that's good. You see the GMP proposal date for the subcontractor was March 29th, and then scroll down a little bit, and the GMP was approved a month later in May. The contract was signed by the subcontractor 2 months later. Just let me say before I go any further, all these subcontractors and suppliers warned the contractor that, hey, there's a price increase coming up in either 30 days, 60 days, or 90 degrees. So he had the warning. And he didn't get the contract signed with the subcontractor for 2 months. And then you look a little further down there, shop drawings were approved in January, which is 6 months later. And I just wondered if somebody could explain why that took so long. All this time escalation of building and building and building. It seems to me if the supplier warns the district or the CM that there's a cost increase coming, hey, that'll be on somebody's list. Let's get this expedited. Let's get the shop drawings going and get it approved.
I would ask the question, and forgive me, I think Angel's with us, but would this be something that needed the progress of construction? Or do you believe that because it's kitchen equipment, it was something that you should be able to buy off the shelf?
Yeah.
That's what, I'm leading you down that path. Is that the?
Right. There shouldn't be anything waiting for any other submittals or any construction or anything. They should be able to order that right away, I would think.
Do you hear the question about the timing of the submittal? Why it took 7 months after just to get?
Yeah, I cannot answer specifically to why it took that long. I do know that it does, all food service equipment is not something that is purchased immediately when the project is awarded. It has to go through a submittal process.
Mm-hmm.
The architect and the food service consultant that we have on the project are working for the architect. The subcontractor reviews it. Sometimes there is feedback comes back and either a piece of equipment, the manufacturer is not available to make it in the time that it needs to be make it, or cannot, or doesn't meet the specs, or doesn't meet the requirements. So there's back and forth in there. There's a time period in there. Once it gets approved by, or stamped, I should say, reviewed by the sub-consultant, it goes to the food service. They put eyes on it because if there's any change, if there's any deviation, if there's any substitute, if there's any alternate piece of equipment, the district is going to own it. It's going to purchase it and it's going to basically live with it in that kitchen. So it has to be reviewed and accepted by school food service. Then it comes back. So I can't answer you specifically the question why it took that long, but there is a process, and that equipment will not be ordered until it is approved by both the architect, subconsultant, and school food service. And it's just protocol to follow, submittal review. I can't answer the specific why it took that long, John.
Yes, thank you. It seems to me, it looked, on the few that I looked at, what was in the specification and what was provided with the bid was exactly what was finally approved. I didn't see any deviations or alterations or anything like that. So it just seems that the CM or, I don't know, the school district, somebody needs to flag those things and expedite them.
Was there, and forgive me, I didn't read all the detail backup on it, and so my apologies, but did it make reference to that we knew a price increase was coming at a certain time? Okay, well then, was it because of the material, the metal was, or I don't know, that metal, was that the cause was pretty well?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stainless steel there, and stainless was going up. So there was price increases, and the bidder all warned the contractor and his subcontractor that increased pricings were coming.
I would anticipate that you're probably right to a certain extent that when we do, and you'll notice that virtually every project we do now, we're doing early procurements. That we're doing a phase 1 and phase 2 on virtually every project now. So theoretically, it's something we would expect that all the STAs will be working with the contractor to say, are you sure? But essentially, that's what it comes down to is, all right, Mr. Contractor, did you check everything? Does every single submittal that you anticipate you're going to have to do 8 months from now, 12 months from now, are you sure that there's not going to be a price increase? To a certain extent, there's guesswork on that. And as well, there's also the concept of some of these things have to be built and measured, field measured before submittals can be.
Yeah, not in this.
This may not necessarily have been the case on this one. You're right. You may be right on this one, but I think it's more of an opportunity for each of us. We're already doing, because we're doing early procurements on virtually everything, but to basically put the contractor on notice. Again, we don't want to remind you again. We're telling you at month 1 and month 2, those submittals you're bringing up forward at month 8, are we going to have a price escalation associated with them?
Right. And the other thing that bothered me about this one is that there's emails that were provided in the backup where the subcontractor, I believe it was, responded to, Moss asked the subcontractor for, I think it's Moss, right? Yeah. Asked the subcontractor, hey, I need some more information on your pricing increase. And the contractor or the subcontractor said, oh, are you planning to rebid this? And Moss came back and said, no, we're not going to rebid this. I don't know why you would tell the subcontractor that. And then again, I don't know why they didn't rebid it for this much money. They had 2 other bidders. I think the reason I've got when I asked that and my question was, they did ask the second low bidder and he said, no, the prices are going up. I'm not going to rebid it. But there was a third bidder. I don't know. It just seemed that Moss is a great contractor. You know that. Don't get me wrong. But I think they just dropped the ball on this one. And I would appreciate it if you'd tell them to.
That's why I think your initial comment to Dorothy may well be the item of saying, in the beginning, you guys need to sign off and acknowledge that you've evaluated everything. We don't want to find out 8 months in, oh, we've got a submittal that's problematic. We're warning you now, you need to be on top of every submittal, even the ones that are coming 8 months from now.
Right. And maybe the architect didn't even know there was a price increase coming up and he didn't hurry reviewing them and there wasn't a expedited process on this one, but.
Well, John, I also think this was prior to the district now doing the advanced purchase stuff.
Yeah.
So this time period was 2021. This is when, we were just kind of pulling, or we were midway through COVID. It was just a very rough time for all the contractors. It's a long period of time, but things take a while to get processed.
Okay. That was just my comment. I make a motion to move this item forward to the board without objection.
Okay, need a second?
Second.
Second by Virginia. All right, Dorothy Polis, please.
Okay, David Porter,
Yes.
John Cheshire,
Yes.
Ken Lassiter,
Yes.
Lou Doctor,
Yes.
Michael Gelfand,
Yes.
Michael Guida,
Yes.
Sam Shannon,
Yes.
Chadrick McCoy,
Yes.
Virginia Ferris.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, PC2, Michael Gelfand.
You're muted, Michael.
Michael, you're muted.
Thank you.
There you go.
There we go.
My question is, this is seemingly a, typical type of renewal. The question is this vendor performing, or have we had any problems with the vendor?
No,
Not to my knowledge.
And we use them quite frequently, and to my knowledge, to my understanding, they are good and responsive, and not a problem to work with at all.
All right, then I have no objection, motion that we have no objection to the considering.
Second.
Second by Virginia. Poll is please, Dorothy.
David Porter,
Yes.
John Cheshire,
Yes.
Ken Lassiter,
Yes.
Lou Doctor,
Yes.
Michael Gelfand,
Yes.
Michael Guida,
Yes.
Sam Shannon,
Yes.
Chadrick McCoy,
Yes.
Virginia Ferris.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, PC4, John, you pulled that.
Yes, this is design services for Boca Raton Community High School renovations. I looked at the fee for PC3, which is Jaga Middle School, and then compared it to the fee for this one. I saw the scope of work was very similar for the renovation, type of renovations that was going to be done. But when I compared the fee to the construction cost, it just jumped out at me. It was the design fee on this one, PC4, was much higher when compared to PC3, Jaga Middle School. In fact, it was 45% greater. For the construction costs, let me say it's 45% greater. But when you look at the design fee compared to the design fee on PC3, the design fee is 143% higher. Even though the other school is 45% higher in construction, the design fee here is a lot greater. And the explanation I got when I asked the question was that Jaga Middle School, the scope of work is more civil type work, which I don't understand how that would affect anything. You're still paying either an architect or a civil to do work. So this one just seems out of whack to me.
I didn't question this because I would have expected the fee difference. Because again, the high school, you've got, almost twice the square footage you're still dealing with to put a whole set of as-built together.
Well, there's, the construction cost is higher on the high school for sure, but I don't see how that justifies the architect getting over 1.5 times the fee of the other architect.
Okay.
It should definitely be higher, but,
Talking percentage wise,
right.
it's 5% on Jaga and 8.6% on Boca.
So each of these renovation and repair projects, when they come through to us, they all have a similar scope when they come through. And then it's during the negotiation process that the design team is bringing more details to the table to say, this is the work that's already been completed by M&PO. This is the civil work that needs to be pulled out of these projects. So it's during the negotiation phase that really we're getting a more detailed level of scope of work. And the one for PC3, so when they pull, it had more than half of the budget for that was for civil work. So that gets pulled out of the architect. When we're negotiating the architect's fee, we pull that section out and then we go to the DMS curve with the balance. And, we don't assign it just from the DMS curve. We use that as a basis for negotiation. Sometimes the fees go higher and sometimes they go lower, but each one of them are individually negotiated.
We look at the scope of the work and really try to nail down on what the effort required to do that work. So some work is more complicated than others. So that's really part of it.
I looked at it, I guess, from my own business, that the renovation project, anything less than 10% for an architect, I'm going to pat them on the back because it's way more money and expense and time to do renovation work than ground up.
Okay.
Anybody else? Comments, questions?
Move to go forward without objection.
You a second?
Second.
A second by Sam. Any other comments, discussion? All right, Dorothy, Pauls, please.
David Porter,
Yes.
John Cheshire,
Yes.
Ken Lassiter. Ken?
Yes.
Lou Doctor,
Yes,
Michael Gelfand,
Yes.
Michael Guida,
Yes.
Sam Shannon,
Yes.
Chadrick McCoy,
Yes.
Virginia Ferris.
Yes.
Okay, last one, PC6. John, you pulled this.
Yes, when I first started reading this one, this is for West Acreage Elementary School. Staff decided to use the reuse of Blue Lake Elementary School. Yay, that's a good idea. Love it. But then I looked at the fee. And the fee for this middle school is a lot more than the design fee for the previous middle school.
For elementary school.
Elementary school, sorry. Same architect, same subs and all that. So I started to get into that. And the first thing I noticed and asked about is the construction cost estimate. I don't typically like to compare design fee to construction cost estimate, but as you said, it's a starting point. So we do look at that. So I question how the $45 million fee or $45 million construction cost was arrived at. Just for comparison, the Blue Lake construction estimate at the time of fee negotiation was 18.5 million. And here we are 5 years later, and the cost has gone up to 45 million. That's 140% increase in 5 years. And just for a comparison, the consumer price increase in those years has increased 22%. And the cost per student station that was given for both of those projects has gone up only 18%. So I'm really wondering how the $45 million was arrived at. I was given an answer when I asked that didn't satisfy me. I was expecting something more like cost per square feet or something. They just said we compared it to a couple other elementary schools, but didn't give me any numbers to look at. So I wonder if somebody would like to address that.
Yeah, so the two elementary schools that we compared it to were the most recent that we have GMPs just finalized this month. So those will be coming to the CORC, I believe next month, November, and then to the board. And those are coming in the $45 million range for the GMPs on those two projects. We vetted those in detail, many meetings, looked at coverage, scope of work, and those are valid current numbers of what it costs to do a school right now. So that's why we set that number at 45, because we think that's what it costs to do. Blue Lake, and then we took a comparison to Blue Lake and looked at the trades. There were some trades that were somewhat consistent and some that just went through the roof as far as escalation goes. Concrete and steel and stuff, it's not, it's 200% higher than what it was when we built Blue Lake. And we still got competitive numbers. We got good coverage on them. So that's, and we looked around the industry and that's what it costs to do schools anymore. No way that should cost that. And
when I know it doesn't, it's not apples to oranges, but in some of my recent communications with other school districts at conferences and whatnot, we're talking about high schools. We just finished, I know we were talking about Garcia High School. We just finished it. And the high schools that are being built right now are on the order of $150 to $250 million. We built ours for 80, 90. Our overall project budget was 105, but our cost was somewhere in the 80.
76.
But we couldn't do that, even though we just opened, we couldn't do that again.
Couldn't do it.
76, that's all 76 million?
Yeah.
Gardens High School 20 years ago was 95 million.
So
that's construction cost.
Yeah.
right, we're
okay.
GMP costs, right? So I recognize that that's not necessarily, clear documentation, but it is It's like Orange County is seeing the prices on a construction project right now for a high school. That's off the charts. That's the $150 million project. And you think, how do we cross the 200 million threshold for a high school? Well, we just built one at 80 or thereabouts. And it just seems like that's the trend in the market costs. I think where Michael's going is we're seeing that some of those industry trades are dramatically higher. Is it fair and just? I don't know, but I know when it comes to negotiating our fees, on the flip side, we get a lot of feedback from the architects who say, yeah, we bid on the project and it was a $19 million project and our fees were based on that, and ended up being a $45 million project. And we say, yeah, but still did the same amount of work you did at 19. So we do have the give and take. It's not a straight, oh, sorry, the price is higher. We do recognize that there are the same features that an architect designed it 2 years ago is going to design the same thing now. It should be roughly.
And on this one, in this particular case, the DMS curve didn't really come into much of a factor in it, only a couple categories because it's a reuse. So we looked at the actual cost of the fee to do the reuse work. So we went, civil work, we went landscape, went architectural work and negotiated that specific to this project, so.
Okay, be that as it may, the construction costs, David, as you said, that really shouldn't affect the architect's fee. He's still designing the same thing. Just because it costs more to build it, the architect and the engineers are all doing the same amount of work. So when I compare the two fees and I tried to adjust them for scope of work. In Blue Lake, the fee there included geotech survey and a track relocation in the design. So I took that out because I got that was detailed separate. And at West Acreage, there's an offsite turn lane included in the fee, which wasn't at Blue Lake. So I took that out in order to compare apples to apples. So the Blue Lake architect's fee the consultant's fee was 1.3 million. And now on this project, he's getting 1.7 million, a lot more to do a reuse. I just 30% more. Now he's not doing any schematics. He's not doing any DDs. He's going right to CDs. So there's got to be some savings there. And
I would disagree a little bit. There's a new site plan that's part of design. You got to place the school there.
Sure.
He's not redesigning the building, but there also may be some changes that.
well, there's site-specific work that the civil engineer and the landscape should get paid for, no doubt.
The exterior of the building's getting redesigned to fit into the community. So the skin of the building's being relooked at. So there's some additional fees there. The CA fee is what it is. Projects are taking longer actually now than they ever have. So our CA fees are being extended out a little bit when you look at doing elementary school in 12 months. Now it's 15 months to do.
Yeah.
All of our consultants are having to pay their staff more, contractors having to pay more, subs are having to pay more, and that's part of the escalation in that.
Well, I'll jump ahead to the CA fee then. I was going to ask or look at some of the other discipline fees, but the CA fee at Blue Lake was $250,000. On this project, it's $600,000. I just can't fathom that. And the backup says it was based on the DMS fee. It needs to be based on the level of effort, like you said, Michael. And you look at the spreadsheet that was included where they do list the man hours. If you look at the man hours and the fee associated with those man hours and add that up, it comes to $331,000. But then the proposal says it's $600,000 based on the DMS fee. So you gave him the $600,000 based on the construction costs, but in his backup where he has to justify the man hours he's using, he only says it's worth $330,000 or 30% more than, that's even 30% more than the Blue Lake fee.
CA seems like it wouldn't double in 2 years.
Right. Unless, and I don't know the story behind it. I know that there were challenges on Blue Lake where they felt they were underpaid for the effort that was, this was a brand new, Blue Lake was a brand new, and I'm not, it's not a disparagement of Discovery. Blue Lake was a brand new design, and they spent an extraordinarily high amount of time on their CA services for obvious reasons. And I think that may be part of the premise of, well, your point, understood that the labor rate numbers don't line up, but I know that their expectation was they were dramatically underpaid on Blue Lake for the effort that was required. So what I'm getting at is you're viewing that the new fee is way too high. And in fact, I think what the argument is that the old fee in the old design was too low.
Yeah.
And they're trying to make sure that they account for the potential of that effort.
Well, it sounds like they're trying to make up the fee they lost on the first one.
You said that part. I didn't say that. What I said,
All right.
they're trying to make up for the amount of effort that they felt they were responsible for on Blue Lake and would also be responsible for on this one.
Okay, so I asked for and I received, thank you very much, the backup fee proposals on both of the two projects. And the architect provided in his backup the man hours and the rate and then the associated fee. So I look at both of them, compare them. For instance, the architect on the original Blue Lake, he wanted $6,800 hours for his work. And now on the reuse, where all he's doing is taking the plans, changing the title block, he wants 8,600 hours, or a 27% increase in hours. And that equated to a 27% increase in his fee. Now you're going to say, okay, the architect does a little bit more than just that. Okay, let's talk about the structural engineer. What is he doing any different?
The foundations are completely different. They're redesigned. We have a new geo report and the soils are not the same. So they're having to redesign all the foundations for it.
Well, okay, it would be nice to say that somewhere in the backup because he's getting a 33% increase. 33%. Okay, that's not just for the foundation redesign. All the rest of the building, the design is the same. The MEP, he's also getting a 33% increase in hours and fee. And the civil engineer, I can kind of understand. He's getting more money. Landscape guy, I don't get that as much. The landscape's probably going to be very similar. Food service guy, he's getting more money. I mean, it's great that we're doing a reuse, but the fee doesn't justify it.
What would we be paying if we didn't do a reuse and we did from scratch? What would the architect's fee be? 2 million?
No, I mean, typically you're looking at about 10% of the total construction cost for all the fees included.
So 4.5
architects, so it's about 4 million.
$4 million. Have we paid that much for architects for a brand new building before?
$50 million project, that's typically what you run at, 45.
But again, you don't base it on construction costs. It's based on the level of effort required.
Yeah, I don't think we've paid 10%. I thought it was more like 5 to 6% on a brand new building from ground up.
No, it's closer to 10.
Is it?
Yeah.
Brand new building. Okay.
Including civil, landscape and all that, yeah.
Okay.
Well, so we're
we're a little less than half of what we'd pay if we started from scratch.
That's true, but you're still, when you look at reuse.
Yeah, I mean, part of the issue is that you still have a $45 million worth of liability too with all the consultants, so there's.
Sure. Right. That's part of it, but I still don't think that justifies the 30% more. And
Yeah, I think reading between the lines, the architect saying, okay, I lost my butt on the last one. I'm not going to lose it again on this one because you want my building again.
Well, I'd also argue that, before we take Ms. Gelfand's comment, I'd also argue that I know the industry that we're all referring to, and I can tell our contractors will voice the same thing, but I know for a fact that our architects are certainly much more challenged to maintain the staffing levels needed to do what they do. And they're paying at a much higher premium.
Yeah.
Some of our contractors actually come to us recently and said, we can't keep working on your projects because the rates that are already locked in that are part of our contracts, they can't live to those because everybody they have, they're jumping ship. And I know that the architects are suffering this, that the consultants are suffering the same challenges, that the money is there for people to jump and they're trying to keep these folks. So to automatically assume that it's a nominal cost of living increase for wage for these guys. I don't think that's what our industry is seeing right now. I think is one of the factors. I think the escalating costs of staff is one of the factors why we've gone up.
Let me get to Sam Shannon. Did you still have your hand up?
No.
Okay, Michael Gelfand, go ahead.
So I'm not certain if I missed this in the discussion back and forth, but I perceive there is at least two worlds on this. There's the world of school and governmental contracting, and then there's the real private world. What type of percentages are we seeing comparatively in, those two worlds outside of Palm Beach County?
Well, I think everywhere you got the construction inflation. I mean, I'm seeing that in different parts of the state and the country. So we're not unique to that, but we have to deal with it.
So construction inflation deals with a dollar value at the end of the day. And when you are basing your price on a percentage, that percentage now is going to be on that inflated dollar value. That doesn't automatically mean that you increase your percentage on top of that.
Yeah, I don't think the fees are completely based on the construction value, are they, staff?
No,
It's a starting point as a guideline, but yeah.
time was a factor in this as well, that this was it's going to be an extremely expedited schedule for this project. So that.
Yeah, just as a reminder for the rest, and John, I know you know this, that we're actually asking for this contract to be signed right now, that the architect's already, expecting to work on. We are expecting to have the design done by early 2024, and the GMP coming to you for April of 24, which is an extraordinarily rapid process.
Okay, well, that's why we're paying more. It's a lot of overtime.
It's going to be a massive amount, but just because there is a certain amount of time regardless of a reuse or whatnot, and we're going to end up having to cram that all into a 3-4+ month timeline.
Why are we doing that? Why is there such a rush to get this brand new school up?
This school is a need. In particular, I mean, I know Binks Forest is the one that's overcrowded by an extraordinary amount. And the idea of pushing it and getting it in was absolutely necessary because this, and I think, and forgive me, I don't know if Chris is on, but the neighborhood yeah, Chris, there you go. Chris has told us the neighborhood Arden itself.
All kids.
It's all kids. It's extraordinarily high percentage of students to total number of households compared to our typical, the demographics that Jason Link would base this on. Their numbers are off the charts to the point where we've acknowledged already that when we build Arden, we could pretty much load the school with just students within the Arden neighborhood.
Absolutely correct, Dave. Spot on. It's the highest generation rate we've seen. And the growth rate is much higher than they even the developers originally expected. And are attracting a lot of families with our students in our local schools.
There you go.
Why are we calling this the West Acreage School instead of the West Loxahatchee School? I kept thinking this was in the acreage and it's not even close to the acreage.
So I want to get back. I want to get back to my question.
Okay.
I will want to follow up with the priority and timing. But first on the question of the expense to the district, how do we determine whether this is an appropriate fee at this point? Yes, I can understand some additional premium for the speed that we would like to have on this. But again, considering that the underlying price is, and I'll use the word, has increased significantly because of the marketplace. I won't use inflated. To the extent we're paying on a percentage, the dollar value to the architect is going to be similarly increased significantly because it's in relation to that increased construction price. I don't understand why the percentage is increasing as much.
So I think that goes back a little bit to when if we were to start this project over new, we'd be give or take 10% of the total cost for architect engineering fees, which would be around $4 million. And we're at 1.7 for reuse. So when we look at it from that standpoint, we thought the fee was fair. And then that's kind of a guideline, right? And then we look at each phase, what work it takes to do that amount of effort. And it's just a guess, right? Nobody knows exactly how much it's going to take. But based on experience, we looked at each trade individually, discussed it with the architect and engineers, and came to this is our recommendation of what we think it's going to cost.
And what items are having to be changed on the drawings? You mentioned soils and foundations. You mentioned the whole exterior facade is being changed because of the regional design aspect.
We also have some programmatic updates as far as this is considered an agri-hood is what they call themselves. So we're going to be heavy in the agriculture sustainability efforts in this project. So
it's not going to be a galaxy, but it could well be on those lines. And by the way, that's who did.
Yeah, I know. So it's not going to be really a complete reuse, just helicopter the building in from Blue Lake and plop it on the site. Drawing and design changes. Michael, did you have more questions?
Not on that issue. I do want to talk priority and timing, but I'll defer for a moment for other CORC members who may have questions on the expense.
Okay. Chris Garrison, back to my question, why wasn't it West Waxahachie instead of West Acreage?
That school has been in the plan for a number of years. Initially, we thought it was going to be built on the site in Westlake. We probably now should change the name to Arden.
Okay. Okay. That would make sense, and tell us immediately where it's located.
Exactly.
Okay, good.
Thank you for your questions.
Okay. Other comments, questions on this, or we need a motion to move it forward?
So let me pop in then. First of all, on that last point, I would question whether it's appropriate to name a school regarding a development, especially a development that's under sale at this point. And I don't necessarily know that I want to have a school solely identified with the project. Especially, gets my next question. Has this project leapfrogged other schools?
In terms of the 5 or 10 year plan?
No, it did not. I mean, it was moved up 2 years, but it didn't do so at the expense of another school.
All right.
That's great.
As we start seeing these mega developments, particularly invading our agricultural land, what can we do to avoid, getting hit with the, immediacy of a new school project?
Well, I think all developments have to, or are asked to, I think, donate land for potential future schools when they are large enough development. And is that the case for Arden?
That is, yeah.
It is.
So Arden basically had to put aside to get their site plan approval, space for a school.
And a park.
Okay, knowing that, the demographics might be there from what was being sold, that they'd have a bunch of kids and we would need the land.
The school district does have a watch list, and Chris, I'd welcome you to speak more on it, but we do keep track on a regular basis. Our demographics is tracked regularly, and that's where that watch list, because basically the need to build a school is usually, at least at our district, is based primarily on there's an overcrowding somewhere and we need to redistribute and whatnot. We're built out far enough where we're trying to solve localized problems. So that's why I say our watch list, which identifies the areas in need, is updated relatively regularly. And that does in fact help us define what changed from last year to this year. Is our capital plan for construction of these schools, is it in line with the demographics, with that watch list, the need?
Are we receiving any type of impact fees?
Yes.
I don't think so.
We probably still receive some impact fees, but in this case, the developer probably requested a credit
For,
for the school, the value of the school site.
and how did we value the value of the school site, considering that the developer, when marketing this, probably marketed this heavy by saying, you're gonna have your own school blocks away?
So,
I agree with you, with the sentiment of what you're saying, but there are some constraints that we deal with. I don't believe we're allowed to tell them that they can't collect or that they can't get impact fee credit if they donate a school site.
But one of the questions is if they're gonna be claiming a $10 million credit.
Oh, I don't think it was that high. My memory, I would have to go back and research it, but my memory was about point something million.
And as they are getting permits to build, are we still dealing with the interlocal agreement, dealing with the impact and the infrastructure, or has that all gone by the wayside?
We have an interlocal agreement with most of the large cities in the county where we provide an impact statement to them. And it's solely at the discretion of local government whether they request any kind of voluntary contribution. But the contribution under the terms of the interlocal is completely voluntary.
And
There was also some requirements for the site itself as far as having utilities in place, having the grade at the right level. So all that was in place before we accepted the property.
Yeah, and they took care of the drainage as well.
I mean, apart from the percentage issue, I do have concerns regarding, and we dealt with this in decades past. We had the last great land rush, if you would, moving out west about 15 or 20 years ago. And that is where a developer comes in, it's got a big development, it has a lot of bucks, and in essence, it buys itself a school. And everyone has to rush to do it, which does take resources from the other schools in the system. And we're seeing it now by we're going to be paying a premium for the rush, if nothing else. That's my comment.
Okay.
I have one last thing. I just want to go back to the CA fee for a second. And like I say, the fee that the proposal shows is 600,000. The backup shows 330,000. I mean, just for that reason alone, I would vote no. And the 330,000 is 30% higher than what they were paid for at Blue Lake. So they're increasing their CA fee, but there's a disconnect there between what's included in the fee and what the backup shows. So
I would have to concur with that only because if the architect lost his butt on Blue Lake for CA and now wants to double the fee for this one, as John's saying, the backup doesn't validate that that's what the architect's doing at all. So it's I think, questionable why the backup for the CA is not matching up with what they want to charge. Michael.
Is there a liquidated damage provision if they don't produce on time, since time is justifying this premium?
doubt it.
Not for the architect.
Not for architects? Okay.
I don't think so.
For the C.
CM has that, but architects wouldn't.
The architect's damage is reputational.
But our damages are gonna be not necessarily quantitative, but we're gonna be looking in the face of all these parents, and the developer's gonna be pointing the finger at us. I mean, we're paying for them to produce on time, but we don't have any economic backstop on it. We're paying for something that we are not contracting for, in essence.
Yeah, but Mike, I'll also say that it's a firm that we've done a lot of work with, and they have always come through on meeting their schedules with quality product. They continue to want to get our work. So again, if they come in late, maybe the last school they designed. So, I mean, there are ramifications to that. Virginia.
I think John has brought up some excellent points, and it is concerning. But do we have any option but not to go forward if they're already designing? Is there any option in renegotiating these fees?
They haven't started anything yet, I would assume, because they don't have a contract, correct? I mean, what can be done about the CA fee? I mean, can that be relooked at to go back to them and say, prove the difference here? I mean, we already asked you for the backup, and your backup's not showing that you need to charge what you're charging. Michael?
What we can do is have a motion to approve. We can defeat it, and our comments to the board would be the concern over the pricing. And staff and the contractor, and the architect can work on this between now and the board meeting and make a revised presentation to the board on the numbers. That's one way to approach it, so we're not slowing things down and we're doing the right thing.
Okay. I mean, I'm looking to staff. Is there anything except yes or no?
Postpone.
I mean, approve or disapprove from Cork's point of view? I mean, is there something where we can approve it with staff going back to the architect to provide more validation why there's a big difference between backup and fee to be charged?
No.
On CA? It's a take it or leave it?
Well, setting aside time, setting aside the time. The circumstance being, we were asked to put together a negotiation in rapid order. And I feel pretty comfortable that collectively we've met a good proposal fee. Are they in the right areas? Maybe not. Maybe we're paying them too much in CA fee, but collectively over the course of the project, their fee is appropriate. I think we've come up with a reasonable price. Now, is there an alternative? No, not for if you vote it down, it won't be presented to the board. I will ask to have it pulled because the debate won't be solved because, as Mr. Cheshire has pointed out, there are question marks that he will never be able to be convinced until we've had a chance to thoroughly go through every piece of information and come back and present a more concise response to his satisfaction, to Mr. Gelfand's satisfaction, et cetera. So there is nothing that will get solved in the next 4 days to be able to present to the board, nor would I expect the board would not appreciate the idea of this body reviewing it, saying no, and then they're voting on something different. So I'd say there really isn't, from my perspective, there isn't much of an alternative between now and next Wednesday because essentially what you've expressed to me, your displeasure in the past of this body votes down something and it still goes to the board and the board approves it. And this body has expressed reasons why they disapprove it. So it would appear as though there's warrant to come back with more detailed information. And I'd be less inclined to take it to the board without the approval of this body.
Okay. Michael, and then I'll get to Sam.
So hearing the comments here, and I don't want to be premature on this, but I respectfully, well, I don't know if I'm disagreeing with staff on this, but we can add conditions as to our motion. Folks may not like it, but it tells folks what we want. And I would consider, or I would make a motion that there is no objection to the board considering, because of timing, but requesting staff to reevaluate the price with the architect to help ensure that it is competitive. And
there's no guarantee. Oh, I'm sorry, please forgive me.
And having proper backup.
But you're asking to approve, you're asking the board to approve the contract is, because right now the architect has signed the contract as is. You're asking the board to agree to that in the hopes that we can renegotiate the fee down. Is that the kind of, because there's no obligation if Ziskovich has already signed this and the board agrees to it with these concerns in the background, Ziskovich is under no obligation to specifically agree to any reductions beyond what's been approved. So it's not like we have any leverage. Once the board approves it, we can ask Ziskovich, hey, can we renegotiate? Can we relook at your fee and see if it's not right that we need to bring it back and revise it? However, they're not in any requirement to. So forgive me, Mr. Gelfand, you may have, it's a great presentation. I don't know if it's going to be something that we could stand to, or don't we lose our leverage?
Well, you have leverage until the board meets. Whether or not everyone's able to act quickly enough for that, that's another issue. And yeah, I do agree that, once the board approves it, it becomes a little bit more problematic. Yeah. But, in my world, until the final, pen or knife comes down, people are always still talking.
Sam, you had a question?
I was just curious. I'd like to hear from staff as to what the consequences might be for a 1 month delay.
We might not open, honestly, because we're so under the gun to meet next 25. It's going to be tough, but
even at this, that's why when Mr. Gelfand had made the comment before about like some sort of liquidated damage, some sort of penalty for failure to make it, I'm inclined to think we're already at risk. We're going to do everything. I'm going to promise the board that we're going to get
Tell
this
them I
thing.
want to be recognized.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, sir, Mr.
Go ahead,
Barbieri.
Mr. Barbieri.
I saw your hand up.
I'm not sure
Dave,
I got
Mr.
an answer.
Barbieri wants to weigh in on this.
Mr. Chairman, I can tell you right now, listening to this, that I will ask the superintendent to pull it if you guys bring it forward with an understanding that you're going to try and negotiate the fees down afterwards. It's not going forward. I don't remember ever getting a recommendation not to go forward from CORC, and the board voted to do it anyway. I would assume that the superintendent would pull this on his own, but certainly I'll pull it off the agenda if I'll ask it to be pulled if you guys can't come to a resolution before the board meeting on those fees.
I would agree with Mr. Barbieri. I mean, that's my sentiment, was that taking it to the board without this body's approval does not sit well. And you've expressed that yourselves in the past, so.
Well, and as you said, it's already been signed by the architect, so it would have to be a new contract or presented or accepted as is. So, Sam, did you have further comments? You're muted. Sam, you're muted. Sam, you're muted, Sam, if you hear us.
There. I was going to say, after what Mr. Barbieri said, I think, my question was sort of moot, if that's the action it's going to be. My question now would be, though, given to what he said, what kind of motion should we put on the floor and adopt? You know, to approve, to deny?
I think your motion could be something to deny and bring back with either further validation of the architect's fee being appropriate or a reduction in the fee to back it up with backup information.
And
There's also the possibility to move to postpone to the next meeting.
Yeah.
Sure.
Or stamp, pull it.
And that's ultimately, at this point, as Mr. Barbieri said, and Mr. Gelfand, you just referred, I would certainly, if the vote was no or recommended to postpone, I would absolutely withdraw it and not make it.
David, we had this same discussion on an item 6 months ago or so, where we said our motion was to tell staff to pull it, and they didn't. They came back and said, we don't have that capability to direct staff to pull an item. So I won't be voting in favor of that one either.
That's all. Okay.
So I guess somebody want to make the motion as to what we think. I mean, Virginia's motion, or not motion, but comment to postpone it with perhaps a comment to, go ahead, Michael.
Supporter, I have, if we're going to disapprove it, then I'm going to recommend that we get more information because we need backup information on the fee. And I know I do work for other municipalities, and I have to give them backup to my fee with hours and rates and things like that. So if that's could be provided, I would recommend that.
Virginia.
I move to postpone to the next meeting when we will have more information. And David, you could add the types of information that we want to my motion. The problem with voting, if I can speak to, well, I need the second first, and I'd like to speak to it.
All right, do we have a second on that motion? Second by Sam. Virginia, comments?
All right, the problem parliamentary-wise of voting no means that when the item comes back up again, it takes somebody from the prevailing side of a motion to move it forward then again the next time. It gets a little more complicated. By postponing, it's a much clearer parliamentary procedure.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, we've had a first and we've had a second to postpone. Any other discussion or comment on that? We may want to add to that motion, as Virginia suggested, that's the type of information that we want to come back for validating the fee or showing a reduction in the fee. John, you want to add to what you might like to see?
Yeah, I don't see anything that they could validate this fee. The spreadsheet that was included seems to me, I don't think it's correct, but it seems fair according to what I've heard here. If the fee is reduced to whatever the spreadsheet shows, that would be a step improvement. Regarding the architect's fee, that still seems high to me. So if they could lower their fee, that would be helpful as well, in my opinion.
Frank Simon, you had your hand up. You're muted, Frank.
You're muted. Got to unmute, Frank.
Unmute. Still muted. No, Frank, you're still muted.
Mr. Simon, we cannot hear you.
While he's muted, Mr. Cheshire, can I just ask you, when you just, to clarify, to lower the fee, are you talking about their base fee, the architect basic fee, which is determined by that percentage, or are you speaking in general, the entire fee?
Architects and the other sub-consultants as well.
You can
So
say in general.
total, in general?
Yeah.
Okay.
Since it's 30% more than the previous design that they did, and it's a reuse, I just never had that happen. It should be less than the fee before with.
So that goes back to the way our contract is written. It's negotiated up to 2%
Right.
of the project budget of the new project coming in. So we're already,
But it also says that it's negotiated based on that 2% or less.
or less.
And then further on in the next paragraph, it says the fee shall be based on hours required per task. So that 30% or that 2% that's in there, I'm not sure what's the purpose of that when it's just a place to start, but you're going to have to come down and prove your man hours.
Yeah, I think we're willing to pay for what we have to pay for with the validation of what the job's really, what this particular
Well, so
job's really going to cost.
I think that's the argument, and we don't need to belabor this any further, but your argument is, give us the backup. But then stop making reference to, well, but the last one was done at this cost. Stop making reference to that. What you need to see is the backup needs to be based on the actual work to do this with today's labor rates, not what we did on a project 2 years ago.
Right, and there's another conflict that I didn't bring up, and that is the proposal says we're not going to give you SDs and DDs. But then you look at the backup spreadsheet and they're charging you for SDs and DDs. There's a fee in there for it. So that doesn't jive.
Well, there still may be those phases for the changes they're making, but not for the whole school. So there's still going to be a schematic that has to be presented because
It says they're not providing you one.
It's not a deliverable, but it's still an effort to go through that. So it's
Yeah.
not a stopping point to submit for us to review because there's no time for that. They're going to go through those phases.
Sure.
So there's still work in SD and DD. There's just not a deliverable that they're handing over for it.
Well, okay.
Okay, we had a first by Virginia. I think Sam was the second. And it was, the movement was to postpone it with providing backup to substantiate the fee. Any other discussion or comments?
Right, and exactly what does that mean? We're going to postpone our approval of it till next month?
No, the whole thing's being postponed. As if it wasn't even presented. We're going to get it next month with the extra material.
So is this item being pulled from the board?
Yes.
It'll be withdrawn. The phrase is withdrawn. Mr. Barbieri already mentioned that it would be pulled for discussion. And we're not going to even let it get to that because your direction is we are going to have it postponed because it's not, the backup that you expect is not provided. So.
Okay.
Frank Simon, you got your hand up. You have to unmute. We could not hear you the first time.
There you go.
There you go.
Now we can hear you.
Okay. Now you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I think it should be clear that it's not just asking them to justify, but maybe to reconsider and come up with a fee that might be more correct.
Yeah, that's kind of what we've been
That's
saying.
right.
That's what we've been talking about.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I think that should be part of what it says, not just saying we're going to ask them to prove the one they're asking for, but, or justify it, but maybe reconsider that it can't be justified and get a corrected fee.
Yeah, to validate or revise.
Yes. Okay. All right. I think any final comments, and we're going to move on to vote. Okay, Dorothy Paulus, please. Now, the answer is going to be, if we vote yes, it means yes to postpone. Continue, Dorothy.
Please state the motion.
Dorothy?
It's a motion to postpone this agenda item until we receive additional information to either justify the cost or revise the existing costs.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, David Porter,
Yes.
Frank Simon,
Yes.
John Cheshire,
Yes.
Ken Lassiter,
Yes.
Doctor,
Yes.
Michael Gelfand,
Yes.
Michael Guida,
Yes.
Sam Shannon,
Yes.
Tradrick McCoy,
Yes.
Virginia Ferris.
Yes.
Okay. You're done consent. We will continue on with our agenda.
We're going to say thank you, Michael, for the work and keep a sharp eye on them. Thank you.
Yes, you keep it up, they're going to hire you. Okay, in progress.
Okay, I'm not gonna go over in any detail, the general projects. Dorothy, we'll kind of zip through them. Go ahead, scroll. Same stuff that we normally put on. Go ahead. Yes, this is the update for, projects coming forward, GMPs. Again, this is all posted online, so everybody can go on. Go ahead, keep rolling. Development, we've got a lot of things in development. I'm not gonna go through the details, please scroll. These are the design projects in process. Our facility renewals, we've got an excessive, number of facility renewals well underway. And there's some on that didn't end up on there that I have to clean up, but you'll find out about them next month. Some of these photos are representative of work that's going on in projects. Okay, Grove Park. Going forward on Grove Park, we know we're a little bit delayed. Grove Park, we're working with the construction team. They've dramatically upticked their services, their vendors that are working on site, their subcontractors. We've increased their sanitary. The work is proceeding quite rapidly now, especially based on our discussions with them. At this point, we're looking towards later in this year for opening, potentially over the winter break. It's either over the Thanksgiving break, but more likely on Grove Park over the winter break. And that would be both Grove Park moving back into their school and West Riv moving into the holding school at Lincoln. Go ahead. Malaluca, similar timeframe. If it wasn't for poor James losing all his hair from the stress of the last day or two, I'd say this is more likely to be available for opening over the Thanksgiving break. But I don't want to promise that with certainty because after the last
question in your voice there.
Yeah, after the last 2 days, I was like, oh yeah, we're good. Oh, so there's always bumps in the road getting to it. So we're anticipating that Malaluca could be ready for open at Thanksgiving break. And then we would still move Winbrook into their holding campus over the winter break.
The question I would have is why not just wait till the winter break, which is longer, and make sure you're really done?
Because the schools want to get in.
Oh, okay.
They want those schools open.
Okay.
They want to use the new facilities and and many of you know, when we build schools, we want it 100% perfect. And we oftentimes can't see the forest for the trees. We kind of want to do I'm not letting anybody in there until everything's perfect. The reality is we have the opportunity to open up the school, beneficial use, and while we still finish up some of the little tweaks. And I think that's where we're going on these schools.
Okay.
We're trying to make sure that we meet that hope of getting in there as soon as possible. Okay, keep scrolling. Pine Grove, Angels project. You can see that's well under construction. The demolition for buildings 2 and 3 is complete. And you'll see from the photos, the formwork, the tilt panels there. So the big building off to the top is the existing building that they're occupying. And that obviously we're building a new building down there. Well, I think the next photo is a little better visual of that. Building up in the top right, existing. And
that remains?
That remains for now.
Right.
For the next year, they'll occupy that building until we build a new one.
Okay.
Build a new one, they'll move over into the new one, and then we'll knock that down and make the parking lot there.
So this is a replacement school?
It
right?
is a replacement, it's a
Okay.
modernization.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Are there any buildings there we have to retain because of custody?
There are two,
Down the
and
bottom?
they are, yeah, those, exactly. And
Aren't
those
they
are under-
portables?
Well, the ones on the right are portables, but those two right there that she's got her
Yeah,
cursor on, those
yeah.
two are existing fixed buildings, and they
Okay.
are being renovated.
Okay. So it's similar to Grove Park where we have to keep the two, the administrative and
Correct.
the media center.
Correct.
Okay.
It's a lot of the same kind of features. And the difference between that and here is on Grove Park, they didn't have a building to go into, whereas Pine Grove, they can remain in the one.
Okay.
And now it takes us a little bit longer, but then they don't have to move. And this is also very much a community school, a Walker school. So it was good to keep them on.
Yeah.
Delray Full Service, really starting to take shape. You can see the first lift of asphalt's down. I showed you guys last month some of the photos.
Isn't that school like a year behind? I mean, whatever the initial concept was when we started design. I was on the architect selection committee with
Well,
that probably a year and a half ago.
No, there were spits and starts on what this scope.
Oh, I see.
Ultimately,
Okay.
that's, yeah, but since we've been working on it, yes, it is slightly delayed.
Okay.
But not for the incapacity of the school. They're still operating, still
Right.
running the same classes they've always
Right.
run. Now they're just waiting for this to have the brand new. And then you'll see that this photo, these photos are of the gymnasium that's being renovated, which is not only going to be used for academic purposes, but also for community, for large space testing and community meetings and such, so. Okay, some of our core expansions, Del Prado is just about complete. Timber Trace, we've also had a meeting with that contractor recently, and they've made a dramatic change. So our substantial completion date for that project is October 31st. And you're looking at the cafeteria on that top picture and you're thinking, they're not going to be done by October 31st. That photo was from several weeks ago. And in fact, between the cafeteria and the kitchen area, we're much more comfortable with their progress that they're going to be done. And even their main office expansion looks like it'll be done on time as well. But again, for us, cafeteria is the big one. Get them into eating in the cafeteria. Seminole Trails, core expansion. Only work remaining is inside the kitchen. So the dining room has actually been turned over. And Department of Health was always fun time. Now, these next two slides are nothing because, it's just Dorothy and her minor projects are. I can't tell you how many projects we have going on minor projects.
I heard the Forest Hill Stairs.
There you go.
I heard it on Sunday that it was done. Yeah.
Yes. That's my presentation for the month.
Okay, any questions for Dave on that? Okay, down to the request of CORC for the committee chair waiver consideration. You all remember the CORC policy sets a term limit for the chair of CORC. And in order to waive that possibility of you guys continuing with the same chair, you have to provide your consensus to the board at least 60 days in advance of the CORC vote at the end of January's meeting. So
I move that we waiver.
Okay, we have a first on that. Virginia, have your hand up.
Oh, I was going to move, but I guess it's the second at this point.
Okay, any discussion on that?
I guess once we finish our caucus, we have to affirmatively do this afterward so that we don't have a vacancy in the speakership.
Good one.
You mean you're not going to make a motion to remove me, Michael?
I was going to say.
No, just to vacate you.
Vacate me.
That's right.
Does that mean I get a vacation?
What are your promises, David?
I promise to show up.
My question was, yeah, exactly. What are we bargaining for on the next budget and procedures? But I'll add my second, which isn't necessary, but just say it anyway. Thank you for all.
All right, Dorothy, you can poll us to see if everybody's in agreement.
David Porter,
Yes.
Frank Simon,
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. John Cheshire,
Yes.
Ken Lassiter,
Yes.
Lou Doctor,
Yes.
Michael Gelfand,
Yes.
Michael Guida,
Yes.
Sam Shannon,
Yes, squared.
Chadwick McCoy,
Yes.
Virginia Ferris.
Definitely yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're down to, on the agenda, you're told when the next Cork meeting is, November 9th. And anyone with issues on the minutes, Virginia?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Aside from what I mentioned earlier, you can take a look at that and see whether it said 2 dissensions or 1. I thought my recollection was 2, but I could be wrong. But the other comment I have is on the last page. If you could pull up the last page of the minutes.
Just so you know, Virginia, I did not do them this month.
Okay, just the last page, please. All right, up a little. I mean, there you go. All right. If you'll notice that under PC2, you have the discussion before the recommendation. It should, the recommendation wound up down below. It just needs to be moved up.
I understand.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I just
Thank
read the
you.
minutes, Virginia, and there is only 1 dissension listed.
Okay, thank you.
Again, that wouldn't have happened if I had done that.
Absolutely.
We won't say who did them, so they don't get thrown under the bus. All right, minutes are then accepted as revised.
David, did we miss follow-up on the agenda?
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't think there were follow-up.
Yeah, there is.
Okay. Go ahead, John, you got follow-up?
Yeah, I'd like to explanation on number 5. This has got to do with a detailed cost analysis and a cost-benefit analysis of the artificial turf that we approved in July. Is to say this is the end of it? We're not going to get a cost? No? So nothing was done at the time.
No, and we misunderstood from the last meeting, right? Again, I'm really poor at this, but the last meeting, I said to you, oh, no, we're still working on coming up with our whole detail. And you said, no, we just needed to have the basic statement, right?
No, I wasn't at the last meeting, so it wasn't me.
Somebody had said the last meeting, and we're just looking for the basic information on it. We still have to do a presentation to you and everybody else.
There were 2 items. One, you were going to come back with what AECom had come up with.
Yeah, with their value.
Their assessment of different.
We didn't provide that yet?
That's all we have. What we provided was all that we have from them.
So we've gotten that? I didn't think we ever got it.
Yeah.
It's just that.
No, if you look at what was attached, all they said was, yeah, we checked the math. If we multiply, it says the quantities of work proposed were checked and found to be correct. Okay.
I thought, Michael, you had actually mentioned that AECom had done their research, and they researched like 4 or 5 different brands in different areas, and therefore they had that information. I think that's what we were looking for, just their statement saying, yeah, it's fine.
We'll get back to you with that, which is the actual numbers, make sure they're right. In addition, what I've said previously, and sorry, Ms. Cheshire, I thought you were the one who had initiated. I had said, we still have to do a detailed presentation to you guys, to the board, everybody who wants to know whether artificial turf is the direction.
Okay. Just look, by this, that it was closed out.
Michael.
Yeah, I was one of the 2, I think, that had requested a follow-up, and I had this highlighted, so I'd like to see this at the next meeting.
Well, I will do the best. Well, what I will is we'll get you the numbers, or whatever the validation of the numbers. Now, as far as the concept of the artificial turf, because that was the other thing you had asked for. And I don't mean you, Mr. Gelfand, particularly, but the CORC as a whole asked for a presentation on the use of artificial turf, whether or not it was justified, right, smart, financially viable, all those questions.
Yeah, I think for the next meeting, we'd like to see the AECom line items where they got validation from various sources to know that we paid the right price for Blue Lake. And then I think the second item is before we are asked to approve any other field replacements with artificial turf, that we get that presentation validating and showing the board that it is something worth doing.
And I would like to add to that, that the safety feature also of
Right.
artificial turf.
That was going to be part of that
Right.
presentation. It was going to be safety and cost and future maintenance cost and replacement cost to kind of validate that over grass fields.
On the safety, that was safety to the players.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. Okay, that kind of talked about reviewing and setting the agenda as well then.
If I may just, Mr. Chair, a slight item on a follow-up. I had occasion to present at the Adult Ed Center last week, and got to say, it's the first since it's open post-COVID, and it's just a remarkable facility, especially compared to what was over on Military Trail. Yeah, and especially Leanne, who I don't think is on, for finding a way to finance that. Again, those are, I think, the students that work the hardest overall of any of our students, and they don't really have an advocate, and you did very well by them.
Good feedback. Thank you. Okay, anything else by anyone? Then we are adjourned. Thank you.
Just to let you know, it's a cool 49 degrees up here in Vancouver.
That's cold.
It's getting over 90 here today.
It's very cold. The beautiful tree, the leaves are changing on the trees.
Are still on the trees.
Yeah.